Many people don't like the Mackenzie at all. They find it featureless, bleak and barren. I don't, though I detest and am affronted by the extensive and extending ditches and channels and kilometre-long pivot irrigating abominations intended to allow for dairying. Dairying in the Mckenzie is sacrilege. Some see it as obscenity. The essence of the Mckenzie and its appeal unfolds to those who stop, look and listen and avert their eyes from our more hideous editions. Birds are surprisingly numerous, sounds carry for miles, there's the chuckle of streams, the hiss of wind in the sparse grass, the discreet rustle of leaves on the few trees and shrubs which gather like scattered groups of refugees. And on a clear day, the drive from Tekapo over the downy land to Pukaki, with the sculpted southern Alps all sheen and glitter in the northwest, is as memorable as any in New Zealand.
Do you want the Mckenzie country to be green or brown?
Definitely brown. Most of the tourists that come to New Zealand come here not to see green pastures and things that they can see around Taranaki. They come here to this area to see Aoraki up the top there, and this wonderful vast brown arid landscape which you can't see anywhere else in the country now. Every other highway in the country is green.
Farmers who don't have water do have green envy. They feel like the poor cousin to the guy next door who's got irrigation. It is growing all sorts of crops and is able to do that right through the summer. Of course, it's also very attractive because the water in New Zealand is free. There's no cost to take, there's no charge to take the water away from the public domain and to essentially privatise it and put it on your own paddock. So that makes it more attractive, and there's also no penalties for pollution at this stage. So the extra nutrients that go into the ground from cow urine and manure and nitrogen and so on go into the groundwater and foul up the rivers and lakes, as we've seen right throughout the Canterbury Low Country.
What I've actually seen happen to the place just appalls me. We keep going back to places that have been interfered with, desecrated, as far as I'm concerned, by people who believe that we have to do this in order to progress, and if we don't, we'll go backwards. If you're not going forward, you're going backwards. All this sort of palaver nonsense. And they're doing it because they have no imagination and they have no understanding of the balance between nature and what we do, and so on. And they think that what they're doing is developing the place. They're not, they're destroying it. They're altering it in ways that are irrevocable. And they're trying to farm it in ways that are unsustainable. Most farmers, privately, will tell you that the kinds of practices being engaged in there can't, they're totally unsustainable in the long run. Now, it's all done in order to produce more food of a kind that most of the people who need food in the world can't afford to buy anyway.
A percentage of our renewable electricity is generated from this basin. So any water that comes out of this basin and goes onto the land instead of down through 8 hydro turbines is lost to generation, and we could lose perhaps 40 megawatts.
Dairying is all very well. I happen to hate it, but I don't mind it being, if it has to be anywhere, in a place where nature provides for its sustainability. But to imagine that dairying should be an activity in a place which is evidently, and for thousands of years, inappropriate for dairying, not enough rainfall, inadequate soils, a climate which won't allow food to be grown to sustain the animals. This is plain nonsense.
Would like to have the country as it is, as it always has been, so I go for brown.
all this land is under tenure review, which means that it's Crown land, which is being divided up between the Crown and the person who leases it for sheep farming at the moment. It looks as though 90% of this property is going to be given to the lessee and less than 10% come to the Crown. There it can be subdivided, turned into irrigated farm, or a combination of all those things.
We've got such a valuable asset, I think we need to think twice about changing it into something that you could find anywhere else in the world.
Farmer on Ben Avon is getting a lot of calculations made as to how much carbon the indigenous vegetation sequesters, and the idea being that in fact it may be economic for farmers to get carbon credits to increase the vegetation cover of their blocks by reducing grazing pressure and allowing the natural shrubs and tussocks to regenerate and become healthy. And that would be a great option, be a real win-win for this area. An enormous amount of effluent has to go somewhere, and a lot of it finds its way down through the ground, into the groundwater, into the streams, and from there into the lakes. And that's one of the big fears, is that the lakes are going to become green with algae. At the moment they're very, very low nutrients, very clear, very clean.
For our time on Earth is to look after our own patch properly and well, and that is our duty, our greatest obligation. And what we're doing in rural areas in New Zealand, I think, in many respects, is heinous. Now, all that sounds emotional and it's charged, but that's the way I feel, you know. I love the place with a passion, with an intensity, and I just see it as tragic what we're misguidedly doing.
I think it's so important to the welfare and well-being of a whole number of New Zealanders, a large number of New Zealanders, on a spiritual level, actually. I think it has a sort of metaphorical or spiritual power, that sense of space and that magnificence with the breadth and extent of that basin and the ranges behind, the Southern Alps behind, like a wonderful set of saw teeth expanding across the horizon.